Thank you very much for joining us. This is Women in Leadership. My name is Lillian Muli, and tonight we'll be hosting Kenyan-born Somali presidential hopeful Fadumo Dayib, who's the first woman to vie for the Somali presidency. She was determined to stand up to a system that has sidelined women for a long time, and she dared to be different in a society where prevalent belief is that no woman should aspire for such a position. She's with us in studio this evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin with what your motivation was to run for president of Somalia.
I wanted to make a change, a difference. I believed, and I still believe, that it is a moral obligation, it's a civic duty to do something about the suffering inside Somalia. And that is why I decided to run. I was waiting for almost 26 years to get a capable leadership that would bring us back to the country. And in 2012, I realized perhaps I was that leader. And I decided I was going to go to Harvard, do my PhD, start my PhD, and then run for the highest office in the country.
At that time, what did you think would be the outcome as you were thinking of running for this position? And meanwhile, you were not even living in Somalia at the time. What did you think the outcome would be?
I thought the outcome would be good because I ran with the assumption that we were going to have one person, one vote, democratic elections in 2016. I had declared my interest in 2014 September, and at that time, we were told we were going to have democratic elections. It's only a year and a half after I had declared my candidacy that the administration had reverted back to the clan-based system. And I knew that it was going to be a very corrupt system. It was going to be a system that subjugates, suppresses women, and I would not stand a chance in such a corrupt system.
When you talk about a clan-based system, just briefly, tell us a little bit about how this works.
It's very similar, to the system here in Kenya as well. Here there are tribes. Tribalism is also rife and rampant. Over there we have clans, and so the 4 major clans and the 0.5s who are marginalized, vulnerable communities. So it's basically saying as if they are subhumans. So the 4 major clans are the ones that are sharing power, and what is left is normally given to the minorities or marginalized clans. So to me that is really a repugnant system. It's a corrupt system. It's a system that is the reason why we've had bloodshed inside the country. It's a system that does not allow competency, that is not really doesn't allow efficiency as well. It's corrupt, it's highly corrupt, and so it is really a destructive, dysfunctional system.
Is this what motivated you to pull out? Tell us about pulling out, and at this point, what are you feeling, what are you thinking?
I am very happy that I pulled out. I realized when we were told that you'd have to pay the registration fee and get the endorsement of 20 lawmakers, that I would have to partake in corruption to get those the endorsement from the lawmakers. And I chose not to do that because I believe that we must have a leadership that is not corrupt, that really walks the talk, and that shows a good example. And I did not want to come into office breaking the constitution, because the 4.5 clan-based system is not in the Somali constitution. So that was a moral dilemma which went against my principles and values, and it was the deciding factor that I was not going to be corrupt to try and go into a system that would end up swallowing me and spitting me out as a very corrupt person.
You've hardly grown up in Somalia, and you're talking about a very corrupt system and an almost dysfunctional way of doing things. So after all these years, why go back there?
I love Somalia and I love Somalis. You must be cognizant of the fact that there are more than 1 million Somalis in the diaspora. There is more than also, I think, 1.3 million Somalis who are internally displaced. People who have not really seen or known Somalia, but who ever since they were born knew where they came from and where they belong, and are really patriotic and love their country and their people. And it is that love that has really motivated me, and that will continue motivating me even now. And so even though I hadn't grown up in Somalia, I had spent parts of my childhood in Somalia. The place is not, strange to me. I've been there. And even towards the latter part of my life, I've been in Somalia. I've worked in different parts of the country. So I'm not a stranger, neither is the country and my people. Neither are they strangers to me.
Al-Shabaab has made it clear that women are to be seen and not heard. So not just the Al-Shabaab, but generally the men in the society, in the community, what was their reaction to you being a Kenyan-born Somali, first of all, from the diaspora, and secondly, being a woman?
Well, I think misogyny is a global problem. That was what actually brought down Hillary Clinton, and that continues to bring down a lot of competent, qualified women all over the world. So it's a problem that is everywhere. And for me, I could care less what Al-Shabaab thinks of me. I mean, I'm not going to live my life according to their rules or expectations. I know who I am and what I'm supposed to do in life. And so it never really deterred me and didn't stop me in any way whatsoever. And being a dual citizen, I mean, I'm a Finnish citizen. I never took Kenyan citizenship. I think that's not a problem inside the country. Almost over 70% of the former administration was comprised of people from the diaspora. Our current president is a dual national of the United States. So the diaspora has a huge stake to play in Somalia.
What would you say to critics, leave alone the female connotation, but what would you say to critics who felt that this was just a PR stint from you and that because you're a woman you stood no chance whatsoever?
Yeah, I'm very proud that I have critics. I mean, to me that is really a huge testimony to my accomplishments in life. I mean, if you don't have a critic or you don't have critics, it means you haven't actually done much in life. And there are people who are always suspicious no matter what you do, because they project their feelings, their actions onto you. Perhaps if they were in my shoes, they would do it because they wanted to do it as a PR stunt. But that was not the reason why I actually did what I did. I left my job, I left Finland, I uprooted my family and brought them here so that we could be closer to Somalia. That is not a PR stunt. That is someone who really believes what they're doing.
Let's talk about the incumbent, the new president, Abdullahi Mohammed. What are the issues that you think that he needs to tackle? The key issues.
The immediate priority would be the drought, which is really affecting the country, and if it is not dealt with, might actually become famine, or could be escalated to become famine. The second issue is to really sit down with Al-Shabaab and other disgruntled parties and negotiate a peace settlement. This is imperative if we want to stabilize the country and we want to make sure that we have peace and stability. The third thing is really to strengthen the security sector, particularly the Somali National Armed Forces. They must come under an integrated command. And their salaries must be paid on time, they must be trained, they must be equipped to be able to provide security to the country. And the fourth would be naturally also then to ask for a drawback or drawdown strategy from AMISOM, so that by 2018 we know when they're leaving and they can gradually hand over majority of the responsibility to our armed forces.
Let's talk about the plight of refugees across the world. Here in the country, there's the Dadaab issue, which a lot of refugees are now happy with this week's development to know that they don't have to leave. And also, just across the world, utterances from the new U.S. president on immigrants. What is your take on the plight of refugees across the world?
It's really, it's dire. I mean, the situation is very bad. And to know the fact that you will have a whole generation, or maybe even two generations, who know nothing but displacement and, being foreigners in countries that they don't belong in, and wanting to go back and not being able to do that. And to me, as a refugee, I'm a former refugee who has, had to experience that. It is really that sense of loss the loss of your dignity, of wanting to go back, of really, hoping that something would happen and someone would bring you back, is something that is in the hearts of all these refugees. I want them to be humanized. These are not numbers. These are people. I used to be one of those people. And so really it is very heartless when I look at what's happening in the United States and in some of the European countries where populism is taking over. We don't know why these people are coming to our countries. If only some of those people understood it is their failed foreign policies that are actually causing this huge displacement, then maybe they would understand that they're part of the problem. And they cannot create the problems and then demand that people should not run from them. Perhaps they shouldn't even go to those countries and instigate wars and cause people to flee. So there's a reason why these people are coming to these countries, and those citizens must ask those questions as to why, and they must take responsibility for what they're causing in those countries.
Share your personal experiences as a young girl growing up as a refugee, and the burden specifically for girls and women who grew up in refugee camps or in foreign countries.
I was never in a refugee camp. I was very fortunate to take a flight from Mogadishu to go, to Moscow on transit on Moscow, and then get into Finland. And we lived in almost a 5-star hotel. And I was provided with education, with health care, with things that a lot of the people who are fleeing their countries lack. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to get an education which I didn't have the opportunity to do when I was here and also in Somalia. And so my existence as a refugee was really not as perhaps bad as that of people who live in refugee camps, who don't have access to clean water, sanitation, who don't have access to education, to health care, who feel that they can be deported any minute, who are repatriated. I wasn't struggling with that.
But you had a brief stint in Kenya. You're a Kenyan-born Somali.
I was born in Thika. My family was forcefully deported from this country in 1989.
Forcefully deported?
Forcefully deported because my parents or my mother at the time was not having proper or legal documents or documentation in this country. And so despite the fact that she had children who were born in this country, it didn't help. We were all deported. And I remember being given a small card that said go home, and home was Somalia. And looking back, I'm not bitter about that experience. I think the Kenyans gave me the best gift in life by actually directing me to my rightful place, which is Somalia.
So where is home? Where would you describe as home?
Home is Somalia, but Somalia to me is not a fixed place, where I carry it with me. It's in my heart, it's in my head, it's everywhere. And so wherever I am, I do feel at home because Somalia is part of me. But my heart beats in Somalia, inside the country, although my body might physically be in different places. But I know that is where I am, and that is why I belong, and that's where my children belong. That's where their children are going to belong, regardless of where they are born. Ultimately, that is where we belong, and that is why I'm very happy that we have a president who will make that perhaps possible, so that many of us can actually finally come home.
And as we wind up, family, share with us a little bit. A lot of people on social media are saying you look very young. So how old are you? And you've talked about your children. Share with us a little bit about your family and your age.
I am not young. I'm 44. I'm going on to 45, and I'm very, very happy.
Wow.
With that age. I have 4 children. My oldest is 20 years old.
No way.
And my second born is 18. My third born is going to be 13 very soon, and my youngest is going to be 10 very soon.
And your husband, was he receptive of the idea of you going into this male-dominated race? Tell us a little bit about your husband, or your mzee, as we call them here.
Yes, and the assumption is that there's a mzee.
Yeah.
Always. Unfortunately for me, when I declared my interest to do this, I lost a lot of important relationships as a result of what I wanted to do. And so I had to choose Somalia and Somalis over those relationships, and I'm very happy I did that.
Okay. Fair enough. We're closing. You are the first woman to attempt to be president of Somalia, and a lot of women celebrate you across the world. This could not have been easy. What are you proudest of as well? You are the first of many as a Somali woman. Share with us.
I am very proud of the fact that when I declared my candidacy in 2014, I was, I became the laughing stock. As I said, as a result, I lost a lot of very dear relationships because people felt that it was shameful. I shouldn't do that. I should know my place, and I should just, stay in that little box. But I felt no. My life is much bigger than that little box that people want to keep me in. And so what I am happy and very proud about is that today, in 2017, my country is considering having a female prime minister, and that would only have been possible because of what we started to do and where we came from in 2014 to where we are today. And I'm very, very happy that we are seeing similar movements in different parts of the continent, that there are many strong African women who are coming forward, and I'm just really happy to see that.
Will you try again?
Of course. If we have democratic elections, one person, one vote, of course I will run then in a system like that.
We celebrate you. Fadumo Dayib is a Somali anti-corruption activist. She was the first female candidate in the 2017 presidential election before withdrawing. And of course we celebrate here on Women in Leadership. We celebrate her. She only learned to read at 14, and she is a Harvard graduate. Thank you very much for being with us on Women in Leadership. We'll be back with the day's sports. Stay tuned.